and we cry, holy, holy, holy is your name, and we cry, falling in love with Jesus, fall in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus was the best thing I'd ever done. In his arms, oh, I feel protected. In his arms, never disconnected. In his arms, oh, I feel protected, and there's no place I'd rather be. Falling in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus, falling in love with Jesus was the best thing I'd ever done. Falling in love.
Thank you. Would you like to hear one more, Maurine? Would you do one more?
Sure, I'll do one more.
And then we'll get started.
All right.
Praise God.
This one's called In This Life. For all I've been blessed with in this life, there was an emptiness in me. I was imprisoned by the power of gold. With one honest touch, you set me free. Let the world stop turning, let the sun stop burning, let them tell me love's I was going through. If it all falls apart, I will know deep in my heart the only dream that mattered had come true. In this life I was loved by you. For every mountain I have climbed, and every raging river crossed, you were the treasure that I long to find. Without your love, I would be lost. Let the world stop turning, let the sun stop burning, let them tell me love's not worth going through. And then all falls apart, I will know deep in my heart the only dream that mattered had come true. In this life I was loved by you. Because of you, Lord, I will live forever and forever. I'll be loving you. In this life I was loved by you.
Thanks today.
We're going to hear some exciting things today. First of all, thank you everyone for coming to celebrate this woman of God right here. This is what this is all about. Yeah, I know, but God works through people. And it's good to know that He's working through people. So let me kind of tell you what this whole event is about first. I have a group called Art Out, and we meet on the last Saturday of every month, and we decided to do something special this month by meeting here. So let me introduce the members from my left to your right. That's Nancy. I'm Terry. I've done that before. Terry, Nancy, Linda, and Audra. And I also want to thank Harold, Dean, and Calvin Joe. Calvin Joe was the one that was doing the music. Harold and Dean are doing the video and audio, and we really appreciate them. It's interesting how God put this together. I had planned to come in with just my little camera, set it up, and go for it. But now we have professionals. I think
what has happened? I don't understand.
something's going on here. But it's really special. This is a special day. And as I mentioned during my prayer, one of the things that I so appreciate about the scriptures is that God uses real people to tell about Himself. And you can read about David in the Old Testament, and the apostle, of course, Jesus. No one can outperform Him in the New Testament. He is our example. But then God did use the apostle Paul, Peter, and they wrote books. And because of the books that they wrote, we're able to learn more about God. And it's interesting, nowadays it seems that a lot of younger people are so fixated on videos, and they always have their eyes in their phones and their gadgets, that I thought as we did this, it would be nice to be able to videotape this, because I want to see this go, your influence go to generations. And this is one of the best ways to do this. So I know you're a humble person, but then again, look what God has done in your life. And we're going to find out a little bit more about that as we go along. Now we may end up doing some audience reactions, so if you don't want to be on camera, raise your hand now. And once we do that, we'll you know that little blurry thing they put over people's faces?
That's fine.
Please,
No, don't
yeah,
worry.
please, I hope you'll go along with everything. So,
I just
Maurine
cut it in.
Georgiades, did I pronounce that right? Georgiades?
As well as I know how to pronounce
Okay. Can I tell your age? Or you want to tell it? Or is that a big secret?
it. It's not a
It's
secret.
not a secret at all.
I think everybody knows I'm 91.
91 years old.
A little more
That's
than
amazing.
91.
Yeah. And so let's address one obvious thing first. You're wearing teal. No, I'm kidding. The breathing apparatus. Tell us a little bit about that. You said it's okay to just kind of get that out of the way. So.
I breathe pretty well as long as I don't do anything.
Yeah.
I don't have a lung problem as far as I know, but I have heart failure. I've been heart failure and have been for years. So the oxygen is supposed to keep. My nurse friend Mary Keni explained why oxygen.
Okay. All right. So.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's why I use it.
Okay. So, just
If
in
I
case.
don't use it, I'm going to probably get too weak to talk.
Well, you keep using it for now then, okay? Because we want you to talk.
Thank you.
In fact, you said you're good at that, so I'm
I'm
going.
a storyteller.
Yeah, I could tell, and that's what we want to hear, stories. Maurine has written 3 books. One is called Stitches of Grace. The other is I, Zipporah. And the last one is Shadow Song, which is a very special
Wait a
book.
minute.
So,
I've written 4 books.
4? Oh, okay.
I have
What's the
over
last
here.
one?
The last one was Isaac Barr.
Okay, so which was the one I'm missing then?
Shadow Song.
Stitches of Grace.
Stitches of Grace. For Love of Elsie.
For Love
That
of
one-
Elsie.
Back getting some corrections made.
Oh,
Should
okay.
be out pretty soon.
Okay, so I kind of got it right. You've written them, but it's not been published yet. So,
That one was published, but it needed some corrections,
Oh,
so I
okay.
sent it back.
okay, all right, so, my mistake. All right, you know, every nation has an embassy, and they send representatives to different embassies around the nations. And they have ambassadors. And from like way back, I think the first time I came here, I had a sense that this was an embassy. Because we'll find out later that people from all over the world, Maurine has brought people from all over the world here. And you are a real ambassador. God says that we are ambassadors for Christ. And I did a study on that once, and an ambassador is actually someone who represents their country faithfully. You can't go out with your own agenda and say, this is what I believe. You find out what your government believes and you tell that story, and that's what you've been doing. So this is not only an author, but an ambassador for Christ, and we're glad to.
Right.
Okay,
Not
first,
turning me to a song, but I'm not going to sing it if I could.
well, I heard you sing just a little while ago. You want to do it again? You want
I don't know if I can.
to? Okay.
I am a stranger here within a foreign land. My home is far away upon the golden strand. Ambassador to be of realms beyond the sea. I'm here on business for my king.
I have a feeling if I bring up anything in the Bible, Maurine has a song for it.
I've been told all my life.
That's great. So Maurine and I, we connected right away, I think. I know I did. And there's several reasons. One, we both come from Kansas. And you know, the great state of Kansas. We're both artists. And the first time I mentioned it, Maurine, I said, oh, you're an artist. She kind of pulled back on that. But I beg to differ with that. You are an artist among all of the other things, but that's one of the talents.
Do you know when I first came to Kansas, I could not speak a word of English, and I cried a lot, but my parents decided to keep me anyway.
Well, you learned the language eventually,
I
didn't
was born there
you? Yeah.
a long time ago.
And guess what else we have in common? You had, what was your dog's name? Do you remember? You had a dog named, well, I'll tell you what my dog's name was. My dog's name was Spot.
Oh, we had, yeah, when I was a kid, we had Spot.
We had a Spot.
Oh,
yeah.
wonderful Spot.
Right, yeah, I had a Spot too. And we are both followers of Christ, and that's the most important thing. So that's the thing we have in common. All right, let's talk about your artwork for a minute. When did you really start, or when was your interest in art peaked? Like, was this as an adult or something from the childhood?
From childhood. I remember when I was in high school, I was always drawing those sketches alone on my papers, and teacher would come back and take the papers away from me so I would pay attention. But I could pay more attention while I was doodling art
Really?
on the sides of my papers.
That is, this is the truth, folks. I did the same thing. I drew on my papers. We are more alike than, are you my sister or something? You are my sister, yeah. But that's interesting because I used to do that. Now, did you get in trouble for drawing all the time in
Oh,
school?
well, that one teacher was pretty troubled by it.
Yeah. So as you started to, as you continued to draw, you started to paint as well. Most of these paintings are beautiful paintings here. Now, what medium is that?
These are all acrylic.
All acrylics? Yeah.
I started out in oils, but then I found out that when I had little kids, having a wet canvas up on my easel with 4 little kids running around wasn't very successful
Really? Yeah.
or smart.
So acrylics is your medium of
I
choice.
like acrylic very much.
Yeah, they're beautiful too. So now, did you take classes or? Do we need to start again? Are we okay?
No, it's
Okay. Did you take classes in school?
Oh, I always
or
wanted
art
to take classes, but they didn't have art classes. Till I was in college and I took a class in drawing, which I already knew how to do anyhow.
Mhm.
And then the teacher died besides, so that was the end of my art.
But you continue to
My
paint.
art classes.
Yeah, but you continue to paint after that.
Whenever I had a chance, yes.
Do you still have a chance any longer?
I still have my paints and lots of brushes and some canvases. And it takes energy,
Yeah.
and I cannot stand up at the easel anymore, so if I can sit down and paint for a while, I'm going to try to finish one that I have started.
Well, later on, if you feel like we're going to go outdoors and paint, if you want to join us, you can.
I have not been outdoors in a long time.
I want to ask you about a couple of paintings in particular. You talked about your parents, and would you tell us about this painting now? Let's hold that up for the camera. Tell us about this painting.
The painting wasn't really my parents, but I made them look like my parents.
Okay.
My dad wore overalls and used a cane, and my mother wore her hair in a bun and dressed rather similar and held on to Daddy's arm where they were walking. And I just had them walking into the fading light
Right.
as they were walking into the fading light. This is, actually, I gave this one to my daughter, but she loaned it back to me a few months ago, very grudgingly,
Oh, really?
but I just want to see it.
Yeah, Stitches of Grace. I think I left my book on
I've
the
got-
table,
I
but
have some
do you have
over
it
here.
right there? Okay. And you even have a bookmark right on that page. It says here, Daddy and Mother were real sweethearts. Now, we won't go into how much sweethearts they were, but that's very special to have two parents that love each other and care for each other. And I think that's one
Over
of the
70 years they were married. And
70 years.
they were sweethearts from long before that.
Is that right?
Daddy first held my mother's hand in a game at the teacher's house one night. He was maybe 11 and she was 9, and he said, I'm going to marry you.
Really? From that early age? You knew that. Wow. And then over on page 10, it said, every Saturday night, the big round wash tub was brought into the kitchen and filled with warm water for our baths, and I remember that too. While Daddy shined our shoes. Sunday morning, Daddy led us all in praying the Lord's Prayer before we dived into breakfast of cream dried beef on Mother's special biscuits, which I have never been able to replicate. So your parents were involved you in learning the scriptures from a very early age, and yet, even though, because I grew up in a Baptist church myself, and my grandmother always took me to church. But something happened later on in my life that really changed my life, and something happened in your life. So I would like for Terry, would you please bring the surprise in?
Yes.
We have a little surprise for you. I want you to talk about it. Okay. Okay. I think that you're going to remember this, and I look forward to hearing.
Just put it up.
Now, what is this?
I'm on top of Mount Baldy
Oh, okay.
when I was 18.
This is Maurine that climbed the mountain. I remember reading about you being a little adventurous.
I thought, I know how to climb trees, I know how to climb a barn. A mountain is just a mountain, I'm going to climb it.
Is that right?
And I did.
That's what mountains are for. So can I just put this right here?
But that's one of my paintings underneath
Oh, okay.
it. That's a painting for Stitches of LZ.
Now, what is Stitches of LZ?
That's a Kansas.
Oh, okay.
That's Kansas. Kansas sky, that color.
Okay, Terry. Okay. Here, okay, we have a cake for you, but we have something very special on that cake.
Oh, my stars.
So tell us about, now for those of you who can't see this, we'll set it on this tray in just a moment. But for those, I'll show this to you. There's something a little different on that tray. And there are two, well, tell us about those pink crayons.
During the Depression, was when I grew up during the Depression, the stock market crashed and the banks closed when I was almost 4, I think. And therefore, we had lots of problems. So we had to buy our own school supplies. So Daddy bought me a box of crayons that year when I was 7. And it had green and blue and red and yellow and black and brown, pink. And I love pink because pink is my favorite color, has always been my favorite color. But my little classmate had a little pink crayon that had belonged to his sister. They had chewed it down to about that size, and it was pink. It was so gorgeous. And I said, "May I borrow your pink crayon?" No. So I said, "Well, he doesn't deserve that pink crayon." And so when he was out playing, I sneaked into his box, and I got his little pink crayon, and I put it in my box. And I thought, "Oh, I've got a pink crayon. I'm going to be so thrilled." Instead, God, in His great grace, let me be totally miserable. I am so grateful for that kind of grace. He doesn't let us get away with things we should not get away with. I knew it was wrong to steal. I knew the 10 Commandments. But I didn't have the power not to break the 10 Commandments. So for 2 years, I struggled with that. I felt so guilty. I didn't want to listen when the pastor would talk about heaven because I couldn't go there. And I didn't want to hear about the other places because it was going to be too soon anyway. So I just didn't listen for about 2 years. And then one night, You want me to tell this?
Yes, yes, please.
One day, some men pitched a great big circus tent in the corner of a cow pasture some miles away from us. And they said they were going to hold services there for 2 weeks, every night. So our parents scurried around getting the milking done and everything so we could go to the tent meeting. And I loved the music. Oh my goodness, I loved the music. We didn't have musical instruments. We just sang harmony. Oh, the group of singers. I loved that. But then the preacher stood up with his big black book and started talking about God, and I just closed my ears. I chose to be deaf. And when he talked about heaven, I knew I couldn't go there. I knew God loved people, but he loved good people, didn't he? And I wasn't good enough to go to heaven. I wasn't good enough for God to love, I thought. And then one night, God opened my ears. I had chosen to be deaf, and God chose me to be undeaf. And so he undeafed me one night. And I heard that Jesus had died for sinners. It was the best news I ever heard. I had heard it before, but I didn't understand it. And they sang, and I was on my knees in the straw, confessing my sins to the Lord. And I was so thrilled, I actually thought I could climb the tent pole. I didn't try it, but I probably could have. I felt I could fly. But also, at the same time, I knew everybody has to know Jesus. Everybody needs to know Jesus. I would be a missionary. I had to be a missionary. Oh, because of the pink crayon. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, my stars.
And that's amazing, interesting how God can use the smallest things sometimes to totally change your life. And that pink crayon, now you have 2 more pink crayons. And it's interesting, from that moment you knew that you wanted to be a missionary.
Yes, I had to be a missionary. It was just an urge. It wasn't something I felt like I needed to do. I just had to be a missionary. I had to tell other people about Jesus. So the next day at school, I tried to tell one of my classmates. I didn't know how. I mean, I just tried. But so I saved every penny and nickels when I had them, and dimes during the Depression were very rare. But I saved them so I could go to college and study to become a missionary.
So that's about when you left Kansas. You came to California and you started attending a Bible school here in California, is that correct? Yeah. And you also met someone very special during that time?
Yeah, I didn't think he was anything special. He told jokes, and I didn't like somebody telling jokes all the time. I like fun, but I like to make fun for people who joke. But he was tall, above everybody else, and he wanted to be a missionary, so that sounded good. But then I heard him tell a joke. I was not impressed at all, and he wasn't impressed with me either. But we started teaching Bible stories to children on Sunday afternoons and grew to know each other better, and kind of something about knowing each other begins to make you kind of like each other, and like sometimes turns into another 4-letter word that starts with an L. So.
Okay. And then things move on. You have children, and you end up having a total of 4 children.
We had 4. Right?
Yeah, 4 children. Daniel, and we're going to talk a little bit more about at least one of them, maybe all of them, but Daniel, Phil, Becky, and Tim. And so you're in California now, and then you end up moving into this big house right here. But there was...
By the grace of God.
Yeah, by the grace of God. But there was a problem. You had this yard. Now, I understand it's not nearly as big as it once was. Is that correct?
This was part of a huge estate.
Yeah.
And after the owners died, the only heirs lived back in New York somewhere, and they didn't want to move to California, so they just subdivided all this land. When we moved here, there were no houses there, no houses here, no houses behind us, all wide open.
But you needed help with
We
taking care
needed
of
help
that.
with taking care of
But
it.
before we get to there, there's one thing that I sort of skipped. I want to back up for a moment. You're attending a church here in Altadena, and you're teaching young people, but you ran into a little situation. Your daughter, Becky, I believe, had invited some of her friends to church.
Well, and my son's best friend was a wonderful black man, and my daughter's good friend was black, and I used to bring black children along to Sunday school, and I didn't know that Jesus didn't die for anybody except vanilla-colored people. I didn't know that, but somebody in that church thought so. In fact, 3 different women thought so, and they made enough trouble that the youth director finally said to me, Maurine, I want to give you some advice. I think you should take your family and leave because people are afraid of your family. I thought, what has my family done? What have we done here? And nobody would tell me. I think a pastor didn't know what was going on. So we just left. I had to stand in front of all those kids on a Sunday morning, 50 or 60 kids and teachers, and say, this is my last Sunday. And we just left.
You know, when I read that story, I thought, you know, sometimes God will use situations to sort of test us or to prepare us for something else. And I believe because you took a stand that the opportunity opened up for you to welcome people from all over the world. God works in such unique ways. When I came in and I was waiting to talk to you early this morning, I just picked up a magazine and opened it. And I opened it to this page right here, and I'm going to read what I read. And this is a quote by Joanna DeWolf. She says, I realized that being a missionary is, I can't read my writing. I realized that real missionaries are not defined by where they go, but who they are. And so let's talk about your missionary journey, how God put you in the mission field, and it's not exactly how you planned, because you actually, I believe, applied for a position for a mission field outside this nation. Is that correct?
Right. And we were turned down.
Mm-hmm.
So we just settled down to live, raise our kids, and bring them up in the church, and I was teaching children. Now if I go back to that church, it's Grand Mix, it's wonderful.
They love you now, don't they?
Yeah, they do, and I love them. There's
Good.
such a mixture.
Okay, so let's jump ahead now. Let's go back to, you've got a big yard, and you need some help with it, and you read an ad in the paper. So tell us about that.
Part-time Japanese young man wants part-time work for room and board. Why I read it, I have no idea, but I needed some help, so I called somebody, and he was a Japanese American, and he spoke English, so he brought Toshi here, and Toshi said, my name is Toshi, I can't speak English. Great. But he stayed with us and worked in the yard and didn't cut the grass with the scissors. He learned to use a recalcitrant motor, what do you call it, lawnmower, which made him pretty angry, but oh my, the talks he and I had. And when he came, he brought with him just his backpack. That's all he had with him, just a backpack. No suitcase, nothing else. And in that, he had a small Bible, Japanese Bible. He showed me one day. My friend gave me this. He said, it is good book. You should read. My friend, not Christian, I think. And he brought this with him. I said, would you like an English Bible so you could compare and learn English? Yes. Good start. I asked him one day, do you know about Jesus? Yes. Jesus Christ, yes. What do you know? He had many pupils. He died. That's all he knew.
That's all you
How do you know? History. More than many American kids know now.
Mm-hmm.
But I told him, I believe in Jesus. Anyway, it just grew. He would come downstairs late at night and we'd talk. And he'd open up his heart to me.
Now, are you still in touch with him?
I haven't heard from him for quite a long while.
Oh, okay.
The next time I hear from him, I think he's going to be in the Lord. He is not yet.
Amen.
But I believe God will keep his promise. His word will not return to him empty. It will accomplish that for which he has sent it.
And so that was the beginning of bringing even more people.
Yeah,
into
then
the
he
house.
brought friends,
Right.
and then we had Bible study here for, well, I had started out with a junior high Bible club, and then it grew into senior high Bible club and college Bible club, just grew with the kids. And he would come grumbling and grumping and lie down at the back and growl as some things would get too close to his heart. But he'd bring his friends. Then he'd bring them and discuss things with me.
So it
It
was
was great.
initially from the Japanese culture, but you ended up with the Iranians and how many nations have?
Oh
been
my,
there
I don't know.
Just name some of them that you can remember.
Well, start with Asia.
Uh-huh.
Japanese, Chinese, Korean, Taiwanese. I'm sure I missed, Iranians.
Iranians, yeah.
Then we've had from Peru and Ecuador and Chile and Brazil. I don't know how
So
many.
you've been out in the mission field right from this spot.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
And you had a lot of different activities during that time. What are some of the activities? that you-
Well, these students come the first month they're here. Everything is just fine. They love it in the States. I mean, they're so happy to be in the States. It's what they've always wanted to do is come to America. And after a while, they find out Americans are not very friendly, and some of them have guns. And one of them got robbed 3 times by gun. And they get really lonely, and they can't make friends. They're lonely, they're homesick, and somebody says, hey, we're going to have a little party at our house. Would you like to come? Yes, they would like to come, and then we just have lots of fun. Didn't we, Tan? Lots of crazy things we would do. I mean, kooky parties that were just great. And one of the kookiest party we ever had, I got a letter later from a card from somebody from Peru. She said, I was there that night. I am so glad you had that party because I met Jesus and I needed him so much. So that was one of the things we did. And then camps.
Camps.
Oh, wow. Camps were just great.
Yeah.
Camps were great.
Now, was it during this time that you were doing the chalk talks as well?
Oh, I did chalk talks for the kids, like at camps and so on. Different kind of chalk talks, like the Good Shepherd seeking the lost sheep, and so on.
This is one of the.
This
things-
one-
Can we turn the lights out for just a minute and put that that light on there? I'd like for everyone to see what that looks like, because I think this would have been really fantastic.
Oh, it's not really I did this awfully fast, because we had these, this light turns on over here by the wall.
She did that awfully fast, and some people couldn't do that in a week. So, but
And with the black light on it,
yeah,
It
there's a
was-
black light there.
oh yeah.
So just to give you an idea, that's what you would see as Maurine would be telling stories about the Lord and about scriptures and things of that sort.
And one of the ones that I told the most was
Okay, you can
The
turn it back
Legend
on
of the
now.
Three
Thank you.
Trees. And this is what that one was about.
Okay.
We had many Chinese students that would come for 9 months of study over in Glendale, and then they wanted to have a traditional Japanese, come on, Maureen, well, a traditional American Christmas Eve. So we had invited them here. Maybe there'd be 60 kids and their teachers, and I'd have games for them, and then we'd have a meal, and then I'd draw this picture while they were sitting here singing a few Christmas carols. I think the reason I drew it fast, and this is an old one I didn't give anybody because I didn't think it was good enough, but they'd run out of Christmas carols that they knew. So, and then we turned off all the lights, and in the dark, I had a captive audience. And I could tell them about the little tree that wanted to be a baby's bed, and it became the manger. And one of them wanted to be a ship and carry treasure and kings, and he became the boat that Jesus spoke out of. And one didn't want to become anything. He just wanted to stand here and point people to God, and he became the cross. I can tell the whole story, and even tell God says, "Oh, little tree, wait, I'm not finished yet, because this man who dies on the cross will be alive in 3 days." And I can tell the whole story that way. Then they take home the picture, and they can repeat it to those who were not here, perhaps. And I wrote it up and gave it to them.
So I hope all of the artists who ever see this remember how God can use your talent in unique ways to share the gospel. So thank you so much for that. Now, you've seen a lot of wonderful things, people coming to Christ. You've hosted people from all over the world here in the house, but it's not been without some challenges. In fact, you had a home invasion one time, and somebody thought you were going to get them all killed by doing what? Tell a little bit about that.
Well, there were 6 of us here. We were talking about the things of the Lord. Well, Yossi was back in his room, so he wasn't here yet, but he came out a little bit later. The doorbell rang, so I went and opened the door. I'm a friendly pup. And here were 2 guys asking about a truck that my husband had for sale. So I was telling them why we were going to sell the truck. It was too heavy for me to manage anymore. And they went to ask how big is the engine. I said, I don't know. You have to ask my husband. Okay, where is he? I said, he's not here right now. And they whipped out guns, and they said, this is a robbery. Didn't say stick up or hold up. This is a robbery. How good their English was. And I said, well, kids, it's really a robbery, because I'm always horsing around, and I thought maybe out there in the kitchen they would think it was another game of mine. Said, kids, this is really a robbery. And these guys with a gun shoved me into the house, ripped my shirt, shoved me out there in the kitchen, and tied up 6 of us on the kitchen floor, hand and foot, and they said, get down on the floor, face down. And as I went down, I just claimed the Lord. Lord, keep these guys, prevent these guys from hurting us. And they talked about blowing somebody's head off and so on, but they all went home with heads. Anyway, they want to know, we want money. I said, I've got something much more valuable than money. Oh yeah, what do you got? I say, I have Jesus and I have peace. And they were quiet for a little bit, and then they said, but we want money. So I told them where to find my purse and so on. But I kept talking with them about Jesus. And Yoshi said, he told somebody later, she's going to get us all shot.
But then again, I think that because you told them about Jesus, they're probably saved today. And they may look back on this situation and think, the best thing I've ever done is rob that house where this lady was that kept talking to me.
If they
about
end up in
Jesus.
prison somewhere, they'll remember
Yeah.
about Jesus. I trust they will.
Yeah. And so, this, it's interesting, as wonderful as it is to know the Lord and to have that confidence that we have eternal life. We do have challenges and difficulties in our life. And one of the things, you gave birth to 4 children, and 2 of them have gone on to be with the Lord.
And one of them, as a child, was very seriously neurologically damaged.
Mm-hmm. And would that be Tim?
It's dangerous, yeah, it was dangerous.
Are you comfortable talking a little bit about Tim?
I don't mind.
Okay. Tell us about Tim.
When he was young,
Start
Little
off when
kid?
he was young, because he was, I guess, pretty energetic when he was a
oh,
young man.
he was hyper active,
Yeah.
hyper. When he started to school, to kindergarten, they let him there for a few days and then refused to let him come back at all.
Mm-hmm.
He was highly intelligent. The doctor didn't recognize that. Well, one of the funny things was he was sick so much of the time. He'd get near pneumonia and have to have penicillin shots or something, and I'd take him to the doctor, and the doctor would come out with his needle, and Tim would run under a table and hide and be so scared. So the nurse said to me one day, "Mrs. Georgiades, let me take care of Timmy. Okay, you can have him." So she took him, and there's this ladder up. This is so funny, I gotta tell this.
Okay.
Ladder up the side of the wall. You know how they have a few feet away, or a foot away from the wall, clear up to the ceiling. Timmy, climb the ladder. So Timmy happily climbed to the ladder and sat there, stood up there, grinned at her. "Now come down, Timmy." Grin, grin. "Timmy, come down." Grin. I think he was 3 years old. "Timmy, come down," and he jumped on top of her.
Yeah.
She gave him back to me.
So Timmy grew, and
He grew.
as an adult,
He was introduced to homosexuality by a neighbor. His own dad did not care for him. Really did not enjoy Tim at all. Tim went to him one day and said, "Daddy, why don't you love me like you do the other children?" And his daddy had no answer. But Timmy was lonely to know his dad. He was dangerous with the other kids. I had to keep an eye on him all the time because he would really be dangerous. But, which may be why his daddy didn't like him, I don't know. But this neighbor invited him to come over, and they had little father-son talks. And the neighbor introduced him to homosexuality. And Tim eventually got addicted, as I think most of them do, and got HIV, and before he knew it, or before we knew it, he was coming down with AIDS, and I watched him die.
and by being around you, growing up in your house, he heard about the Lord.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
And he had gone to a church where he loved it, and he sang in the choir, and one of the ladies used to say she loved to see him because he was so full of the joy of the Lord when he was singing. And then when they found out that he was probably homosexual, he wasn't allowed to sing in the choir anymore, broke his heart, and really he went haywire from there on.
You know, a lot of people probably have, not when I say people, Christians, probably have the idea that someone that's involved in that lifestyle cannot go to heaven. What would you have to say about that?
I think when Jesus died on the cross, he said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing."
Right.
And I think he probably would say that to some of these homosexuals who are trapped in this. I think lots of them would want to get out of it. Timmy wanted to get out of it.
And I think if we all look at our own lives, we struggle with things throughout all of our life. If we ever got to the point where we are perfect, we wouldn't need Jesus.
We wouldn't be here.
We wouldn't be here for one.
He'd take us away
Right.
when we're perfect. I mean, we'll be perfect when we're
Yeah.
with him.
So finally, what are you looking forward to in this stage of your life?
Tomorrow and the day after that, because I don't know when Jesus will call me home
Yeah.
or when he will come, but I want to be with Jesus, but I am perfectly contented here. So it's
But you're not afraid of that day. Whenever
No.
it comes,
no, I'm not.
yeah.
And I
that's-
watched 2 sons die, and then I watched my husband die. I sang for my husband as he was dying.
Yeah. And so that's I think that's one of the things that's so special about knowing the Lord is that there's not that element of fear. You know, we're all going to go, but you know, I hear people talk and you just realize that some people are so afraid of what's going to happen after this life. And it's something to have that peace.
My
And that's-
son, Tim, in the book I called him Tom, because I camouflage most things. Yeah, I totally forgot what I was going
Your
to say.
son Tim. But while you think about that, I think we're just about finished. Do you want to take any questions? If anyone has any questions, you want to
Oh,
ask?
yeah, I don't mind.
Anybody have any questions for Maurine?
I know what I was going to say.
Terry, okay.
First, Terry. One of the Bible study people here went upstairs to talk with Tim while he was in the process of slowly dying. And Tim said, "I'm glad I've got AIDS." And Norm was just shocked. Why? He said, "Because it's brought me close to God, and that's what I've wanted all my life." So when I saw him dying, he was in agony, he was in terrible pain, but there was so much joy. It was wonderful.
Yeah, I'm really glad you told that because a lot of families are dealing with that nowadays.
Yes.
And it really helps to get a good perspective on that.
And
So thank you.
13 and 14-year-olds are coming down with it now. That just
It's unfortunate.
horrifies me.
Yeah.
Poor kids, they don't know what they're getting into.
I think Terry had a question.
Terry,
Oh,
yes.
Back to the home invasion, which terrifies me, but how did the robbers finally leave?
Well, they tied us, they gagged us, told us to don't do anything for 10 minutes. And they had ripped the telephones off the lines and so on. So I heard the front door close, and instantly my hands came free. They had tied me up with one of George's socks. Because they ran out of ropes. They had brought ropes. They ran out of ropes, so they just grabbed whatever they could find. And George's socks didn't really keep me very firm. And I grabbed the scissors out of the drawer and cut my legs free, and then cut Yoshi free and gave him the scissors. And I went to the only telephone in the house they had not ripped out of the wall. One they missed.
Any other questions? Okay, why don't we thank Maureen? This has been wonderful. Thank you. The final thing I'd like to do, we've been praying for this event. I know other people have been praying for it even before today. But I would ask if you would pray for us before we leave. Would you mind doing that?
Lord,
Praise you, Lord.
I just want to praise you for who you are, for letting me know you all these years. And I thank you for these people who are here today. And I pray, Lord, that you will use all of us to keep on glorifying you. If we do not know you as the God of glory, we're missing it. Lord, I pray you will help us, each one, to see you and to honor you in the glory, with the glory, some of the glory you desire. We'll never make it, but Lord, I just pray that as we use our art, any art you've given to us, for you, that it will be only for your glory and not for ourselves. We can't make names for ourselves. Your name is high above every name. You are far above all of us, Lord Jesus. we love you. We honor you here. You are worth every praise we can give. We will see you someday and bow at your feet with all of those that you've helped us to learn to know you, to see you. I thank you, Lord. I thank you, Lord. We'll see you later, Lord. Amen.
Well, thank you. Can I have another hug?
You may have as many hugs as you can get close to me. I know with all this stuff around me, it's hard to get close.
Okay. Wasn't this wonderful?
Yes, thank you. I do have another question, if it's not too late. It seems like, okay, I read your book a while back, the one that has the word joy in it about Timmy, and I can't remember what it's called.
Shadow Song?
Maybe that's it. Was that the one about your son, Tim?
I have the picture, I have the books, I can show you the book.
Well, one of the things I kind of remember reading, and I think when they wouldn't let him sing, he found a church that would, oh yeah, I think that is it. They would let, that I think is it. They would let him sing at this other church, but they kind of accepted the homosexuality like it was
Yeah.
pretty normal. And it seemed like when I read it, I remember you saying something about he later came to the conclusion that the one that told him it wasn't like going to bring joy in life kind of thing was more compassionate because they told him the truth. Did I get that right or wrong?
Well, whether you got that out of the book or not, you're right.
I think I did. So in this day and age, like my daughter's going to public school and there's a lot of people, like I'm in Moms in Prayer and I'm also in the PTA or PTSA, but one of the things that's interesting is there's this thought that if you're accepting of the whole thing as just as good as anything else, you're being compassionate. And I'm like, no, I know.
No,
The truth is more compassionate if you deliver it with love.
absolutely. Without love, the truth is damning.
Yeah. But I got that from your book. And
Well,
I've
you
been
probably
able to-
did. After you write 4 books, you sort of forget
They
something.
blend.
This is my latest. I, Zipporah. It's available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and so on. But be sure to ask for it by I, Zipporah. That way you know what it is. It's a story of, it's not her story, she's telling the story. It's in first person present tense, which is an awkward way to write a book, but I did it. And that's the way I felt the Lord wanted me to do it. It's about her, and she marries Moses, and she's beginning to turn from her carved gods to the real God as she sees God through Moses interacting with God. So she begins, as Moses leaves earth for glory, she's rejoicing because she knows the God of glory. Anyway, that's the story in a nutshell.
All right. Okay, so we have sandwiches, coffee, all of that in there. Please help yourself after you have a snack. The artists and cake. And anyone that wants to paint or draw, we're going to go outside and do that afterward. So
that's
everyone's
nice.
welcome to do that. I have some extra supplies just in case anyone wants some supplies. So as we give Maureen a rest now, Calvin Joe, I'd like for Calvin Joe to just sort of end this with a song, if that's okay, Maureen. You want to hear one more song? And if you want to take off and
I wanted
just
to tell you
relax for a
something about
minute.
these chalks.
Okay.
You can see these in the black light. This one is yellow gold, that one's gold, this one's orange.
Really? It
Some of-
looks white.
But yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So I can paint a snow-covered scene and we turn on the light and it's something else.
So how do you know if you have the black light on? Could you see those as those different colors, or you just have to read it?
I'd have to read it.
Oh.
I couldn't tell.
Interesting.
But some of them are already in color.
Right.
Some of them just look
So-
white.
So look about how white those look and get the different colors.
Where'd you find those?
I used to get them in an art store in San Gabriel. I have no idea now where to get them. I don't know that anybody else is even doing chalk talks anywhere.
It should be.
I hope so, because I think it was a good message.
Oh, I brought so many students. A lot of you know that I've been in mission work and I taught English as a second language for a while at Pasadena City College. That's why I went. Eileen, our friend, Pam's friend. But I brought so many students through the years that just love seeing this painting. Yeah, it just had a profound effect.
Oh, I didn't know the painting was so super special.
They thought so.
Okay, so we're gonna end this part. Calvin Joe's gonna do another song for us, and there's snacks and things in there to eat.
I
So
wish you could do one, you and I could do a duet on.
We'll work on that. But there's this very special song I want to dedicate to you.
Good.
It's written by one of my Japanese friends. His name is Wes Terasaki. It's called He Is God. Okay? In the quiet of the night, every star shines with the warmth of its creator. Echoing its perfect light, all the universe is smiling. He is God. From the moment of his birth, while the stillness of winds the blues is coming, merging heaven with the earth, so the world can know this day that He is God. See, so beautiful to me, with colors you can see. He'll paint your heart with golden love. Peace I hardly understand, like waves upon the sand. He covers me with love, oh, His love. All life at His command, every bird shall come to rest upon His shoulder. Trees reach up to touch His hand, and they tell me He is Master. Oh, they tell me He is Master. Yes, they tell me He is Master. He is God. God bless you.
Thank you.
And that was written by a Japanese man.
Yes.
Praise the Lord.